It's America's Man's Man, and I want to help you keep your local community safe. Pardon me as we talk and drive. You want to be on the lookout for, in your local community groups, online forums that you may want to look out for potential Antifa posers. So they're not going to say they're from Antifa, and they're not going to bother you too much at first if you're not actively defending your community. If you're defending the violent rioters that are setting fire to and throwing bricks at the police officers in cities across the country at the behest of the fake news media, they're not going to bother you too much. If you're like, yeah, well, you know what, I'm all for peaceful protesters, and of course they're always going to turn violent. Remember, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. And obviously the goal is violence, and every single protest that we're seeing has absolutely nothing to do with the human tragedy that may or may not have sparked the kind of fake news, doing what they do and fanning the flames of violence across the country. But listen, if this is not at your doorstep yet, it's time to really consider yourself blessed, but also consider that it might be time to really plan ahead. Because what the left is trying to do, what the fake news has been trying to do for years, is really to put you in this, to scare you, to put you in the state of fear. Because I mean, they're mama's boy Antifa, right? They don't really have the numbers, and they never have had the numbers to take down the land of the free, the home of the brave. So their best bet is to terrorize its people into submission, and with the idiot box, working on them and America 24/7. For how many years before we finally figured out what fake news is and what it does? That could have been a realistic possibility, but you've got America's Man's Man to help you out now. And by the way, the fake news is always watching all this. Just something to keep in mind as you continue to watch America's Man's Man, Wisdom for Men Among Millies. So you're a man's man, or you are a woman who cares about your community, and you've started to defend your community recently. You're waking up, and you're among the folks waking up locally, discovering, geez, if I don't do something, this is going to get to my doorstep. So, and the thing is, the whole fear game of the left, and I've been fighting the culture war against communism, against the left for 20 years here in Massachusetts. Be it the battle that they've waged to take down marriage rather successfully, or the Antifa mama's boys today. And what they want to try to do is they want to use fear to get you to think emotionally and react to what they're doing. That's really their number one tool, because again, they're Antifa. They're big wussies with a capital P. So you've got to be prepared for they're going to start personally attacking you online. They're going to start I know this because I work and live in several communities where I'm I have the misfortune of being a part of the Facebook group that represents those communities. I say misfortune because it's it's Facebook, and Facebook, well, they Zuck, but what they do. By the way, they're not going to call themselves Antifa. They're going to pretend they're in halfway around the world usually, but they pretend that they're members of the community. They appropriate locality, just like the fake news does, to make it seem like there's more of a threat to your social credibility than they're actually. And of course, they're like I said, they're basically domestic terrorists posing as community members to stir up violence. And they want to make you afraid to speak out against them. They want to make you afraid to do exactly what I'm doing right now, which is really thinking about your community, really thinking about, well, how do I protect my loved ones and my neighbors? How do I protect those in my life around me? How do I protect the businesses, the schools, the police officers, the firemen, everyone who makes up your immediate geographically local community? which most of the time they're not. They're paid guns for for money that's paying them to try to dismantle America, and they want to put all of us in a state of fear. How do they do this? Well, they're going to start attacking you personally online. It's almost like second nature to me now. It's like I know when you start defending your community, again, you're not going to get attacked that much if you're not if you're not actively trying to be a part of the solution. In other words, if you're if you're going along with it and you're saying, well, for instance, one person in a community group said, well, you know what, I'm all for, as long as the protests are peaceful, because they're just, and they say this out of fear. They know that peaceful protests are going to turn violent, because that is what that's what Antifa, that's what the forces that have been doing this everywhere else have done. They always turn violent. But there are some people who, out of fear, try to defend the peaceful protests, and this is just the stage of the game that we're at. Doesn't mean that I'm against legitimate public displays, but this is not that, and we know that now because we've seen it played over 1 million times. If nothing else, that's the one message that we should take away from the fake news coverage, which actually instigates more and more of this, and that's their plan. So be prepared for personal attacks when you say no. I really don't think that it's appropriate to have a little anti-America rally, with. By the way, if you have cops kneeling in your police department and actually joining the protests, they're dumb. Okay, they're retarded, because there's no other way to say it, because these are anti-cop demonstrations, right? So they're anti-American demonstrations. So anyway, it's an aside. Be prepared to be personally attacked. They're going to say really, they're going to say disgusting things about you, and they're disgusting people, and so they're slinging insults at you. Keep in mind that that would really hurt them if you insulted them with that. So just keep that in mind. They're trying to throw they're basically projecting all of their Antifa anxiety and millennialness on you, and so you don't want to be scared into some. You shouldn't take it seriously, is all I'm saying. Whatever you're and you shouldn't. I would block them. I'd block them, right off the bat. If you say, "Oh, this person's being really unreasonable," maybe ask them. Say, "What part of town do you live in, anyway?" If they're communicating in a community group, say on Facebook, or maybe tell me a little bit more about yourself and ask questions. Try to figure out where they're coming from, and if it becomes apparent that they're just, that they are just, they're gung-ho about starting a riot, maybe, and they probably won't say, "Oh, we're going to start a riot in this town." They're going to say, "Oh, we're just going to do it next door. We're going to do it in a neighboring town. Aren't those great guys in the next town over who are rioting, or who are peacefully protesting?" And that's how they get in, okay? Because remember, the left has always been about trying to take down what they perceive as a system that's stacked against them from the inside out, using the system against itself. This is how. This is a fundamental principle of communism, of Marxism. So the way that they've made so many awful inroads into our blessed, profoundly blessed republic. But this is so. So they're going to attack you. They're going to verbally attack you online. They're going to try. So they're going to basically threaten your reputation by making really offhand. And you just have to shut them down immediately. Just call them out immediately and say, "Hey, just and tell your neighbors, just block this person because he or she is a raving Antifa mama's boy lunatic." Okay, grown up, like a baby in a man's body, right? Because that's what Antifa is. And the Bernie Sanders supporters, naturally. So what else? So what else are they going to do? Well, they're going to threaten physical some of them they'll insinuate. They won't say outright, but what I've seen personally is that they're going to say, they'll insinuate, they'll say, oh, I've got what I needed, oh, I got what I needed, or they'll make some remarks online that seem to suggest that they're going to either get you, or that they're going to quote you and everything, which isn't a problem, of course, because we're the good guys. We're trying to protect our family, our community. They're going to threaten physical violence. And they do that mostly. They do that indirectly, again, because they're cowards, through the mainstream media, the fake news. I find it. I never advocate violence, but I do find it somewhat fitting that one of the recent protests attacked news trucks in Boston because it's the news that is spreading this flame of anger all over the country, and that's the game of the fake news, to spread anger. So that's the two principal ways that you want to be prepared for when you start defending your community, either online, when you start rallying your community to say, hey, these are bad people and we really, really don't want to give them an inch because they'll take a mile. And if you don't want your doorstep set on fire, if you don't want bricks thrown at your house, if you don't want your house graffitied, your town graffitied, your town hall vandalized, your police department set on fire, just like the fake news is making kind of a god of, making an example of, saying, oh, everyone should set their police department on fire. You don't want that to happen in your town. You're going to start naturally putting together a plan to defend your community, your local community. You're going to start proactively, maybe even putting together, registering people to own guns if they don't own guns in your community, for personal protection, at the very least, just to have in the house just in case. As a last resort. But my preference is personally to hire a personal security detail, and for your municipality, make sure that your police department has emergency funding to do what they need to do to protect you, and you may even augment that with a local if not a local militia, because that's a word that does kind of scare people. But we don't like a police state either here in America. We don't want to. So you want to have maybe a mix of citizenry. And paid security details for both yourself personally and for your municipality, which augment the good work of your local police, who are not kneeling with the anti-police people, you dummies. And I know that's only one or two of the police officers out there, but seriously, you dummies, you one or two who are joining anti-police, anti-American protests. Seriously, what's gotten into your head, guys? Come on. Anyway, this is America's Man's Man on what you can be prepared for when you start defending your town, your city, from the anti-American violent rioters who we just need to be prepared for, if nothing else, and we need to proactively come up with a plan to deal with them, both digitally and in the real world, should those cowards decide to pick a fight in your community, like they've picked fights across the America, with thanks to the fake news, which has been their number one publicist and marketing person, PR people for this whole thing. Anyway, so that's the word from America's Man's Man on how you can. What you can be prepared for, what you can expect when you begin to do the right thing as America's man's men and women to protect those whom you love and the people who matter to you.